Overwatch 2 is one of the biggest FPS titles in the world. Because of this, every excruciating detail like gameplay, story, art, monetization, and esports are under a watchful eye from all interested parties. And yet, one overlooked detail from the developers of the game is the fun factor and how the way the character design in relation to gameplay is inherently flawed. In this video, I'll be discussing the recent characters implemented and how their design and mechanics are making this game terrible. I've spent the past month looking into the history, the pro players, the streamers, and the developers of the game, and come to a rather shocking conclusion that you won't want to miss. This is the real issue with Overwatch 2. Let me take you all back to a time of peace, serenity, and the Overwatch arena when Jeff Kaplan walked on that stage and announced something that already got leaked the week before. Overwatch 2. I remember the hype around this announcement being so high, and we all thought the game would be taken into new direction and to new heights. And then, silence. Fast forward 2 years later, and finally a beta. The beta would release, and along with it, a new hero, Sojourn. Things were looking up for a game that hadn't been receiving any updates for the better part of 2 years. Maybe this was to be something good for Overwatch, but when people got a hold of the game, it was broken. Sojourn, the new hero, was taking over lobbies, and the new 5v5 format allowed room for individuals to take over the game simply by playing this one character. People were quite visibly upset, as along with the drawbacks of the main game, there was no resemblance of the story mode promised way back in 2020. People were beginning to question Blizzard and discuss in a new 5v5 format what their hero design philosophy was. In an IGN article, Blizzard quoted, "We are doing away with hard counters. This means there will be less emphasis on heroes who are able to defeat specific characters and forcing players to swap." A more recent response from the team discussing the core pillars that they build their characters on, they stated that counterplay as well as space and playstyles are of utmost importance. However, they admitted that they had recently lost touch with these core values for instead complexity and game mechanics. They lost touch indeed. Let's have a look at the characters released during this period. Oh dear. If you didn't have the privilege of playing these characters on release, you missed out. At the time, these were some of the most broken characters with kits that could pretty much do anything. So much for simplicity. And even now, these characters are still dominating. With all the health, projectiles, and damage reworks going into Season 9, you think that there would be a shift up in meta. But no. If you have a good Sojourn on your team right now, they can take over a lobby and delete any support who dares put a pixel on their screen. But let's talk about the devil's child of Overwatch, Kiriko. There has been so much discussion on this character and how their abilities can do too much of everything. Teleport 35 meters through walls on a 6-second cooldown, instantly cleanse any negative effect, heal, and give a frame of Reaper Immo as an ability with a lower cooldown than Res and Immortality Field. High damage potential with 120 damage dealt with a headshot, and she can wall climb because Japanese. Just to compare with a more classic character, Cassidy has Shoot. Now I get it, at that point people had to pay for the characters and they wanted to make their new character more appealing by making them absolutely busted. But now all the characters are free and there is no reason to be overcomplicating characters. Like, look at this screenshot of Ramacho's kit on release. The main issue I'm trying to highlight here is the value you get from playing these types of characters. They have, in my opinion, a super boring playstyle where it is simply press buttons, get value. In previous iterations of the game, your mechanics and your positioning could solely determine if you win or lose a game. Now, it is determined by who uses their buttons better. Simply, if you are playing all the right characters and coordinate, you can cycle all the cooldowns. Nade, Suzu, Immortality, Fortify, Malga's, haha, and then already be ready to use your abilities again because you pressed button, got value. We're in a state of the game where there are actually quite a few characters I think are balanced, but they are just unplayable because the best will always be better than balanced. There are just no consequences to actions, no consequences to playing safe as a Kiriko or a Ram or Hog or whatever tank they decide to pick per season, and I think there should be.
They have this game design idea, balancing idea that everything needs to be accessible to everyone perfectly, in the sense that Sigma Flux just hits anywhere, right? There's no counterplay to it. You can Suzu or whatever, right? But You can't hide behind the wall. Roadhog could heal all the time now. He can hook while ulting, whatever else. My point is, back in the day, I can sound like a boomer, there was consequences to doing an action. Like, you charge in, you can't cancel. You ult, you can't do anything, right? You signal flags behind the wall, you miss, right? But now, whatever you do, you're gonna get value out of it. And it's just kind of boring to me, because there's no layers to playing the game. There's just press the button and get value from it.
So how would I fix the game? Firstly, revert the health changes. I think it was a nice idea to make the game more accessible, but being able to punish poor positioning more effectively will alleviate the stress from committing to try get a kill for then the enemy team just to be bailed out by very minimal effort. A kill or surviving being killed should feel earned and not a given. Along with this, some across the board nerfs to get out of jail abilities. Whether that be changing Kiriko's TP distance or the LOS, or even increasing the cooldown, this would probably feel similar to the sleep nerf given to Ana a while back for Kiriko instead. Even for tanks, reducing healing received or damage reduced from specifically the tank abilities. Hog Kill, Orisa, Fortify, Malga, Queen, Shout can sometimes feel not very fun to counterplay. I think the game would benefit from having movement and mechanics and timing being the decider of fights, not these get out of jail cards. So increasing cooldowns or reducing the potency of their effects may be a way to reduce their reliance from players. An idea I really liked that I think had some poor execution from the devs was the Ball Adapter's shield rework. I like the idea of a tank ability aiding your teammates, like the old-fashioned Winston bubble or Ryan shield. It's a good idea. Using an ability as a tank should be able to aid yourself to an extent, but also allow your teammates to take space or apply pressure. More abilities like this, or even some reworks to old abilities, could benefit the tank role heaps. Hopefully some abilities that provide utility outside of health and health reduction. As for DPS, I don't think the passive is the way to go. It's given DPS an excuse to hold shoot on the tank instead of playing for picks and off angles. I get they were trying to do something different with the passive system, but it just makes the experience of playing support and tank against good DPS unfun, due to the constant pressure of the DPS passive making healing the tank an impossible task. Look, these are just some ideas that I've heard of or thought of myself. However, the key point is to stop producing characters with an abundance of gimmicks that are simply easy value, and instead strive to create unique characters with abilities that challenge the player to think creatively on how best use this to benefit my team within varying scenarios. There's a lot of problems with the game right now, but I think what Blizzard have been doing, which is buffing the whole roster to compensate for everyone's overtuned kits, is not the play. That's literally the definition of power creep. I think Blizzard really needs to look at the characters they have made and that are currently being played and have a hard look at their character design philosophy and ask themselves, do these characters fit this philosophy? And if they don't, what are they going to do about it? Because currently the state the game is in is unacceptable, and people on a competitive and a casual level are inherently not having fun. Despite the flaws and mistakes the Overwatch team have made in the game over the past year, Aaron Keller and his team really seem to be taking on the criticism the community have about the game and are trying to implement changes for the betterment of all players. We've already seen the change to the new hero unlocks, and they have made many big balance changes and decisions that have seemingly bettered the game. And while character design plays a big part of the overall experience of Overwatch, it isn't everything. And I look forward to future discussions on what is going on in the Overwatch world. If you are a fan of Overwatch and want to see further discussions on gameplay, characters, esports, and more, or if you just enjoyed my content, leave a like, comment, and please subscribe. I would appreciate any amount of support, and will be creating videos similar to this in future. See you later.